listening to the MUN podcast with
Kyla,
Casey,
and Carol.
Welcome to the MUN podcast.
Welcome back.
We have some sad news.
I mean, yeah. Well, it's good news considering that she'll be back on Saturday, but Kyla is not here to record with us right now because she has taken some well-deserved time off to go spend time with her family before her big girl job starts, and so tearfully it is just Casey and I recording today.
Hopefully we can make it as good of a podcast with just us two. But this is a shout out to Kyla, who is not huddled around this microphone right now.
Yeah, I'm sure she's having a much better time. She's petting dogs and having fun or something.
Yeah. With
it's
that,
not raining.
Do I have any motions to open debate?
Motion to open debate?
All those in favor?
Well,
this clearly passes.
I mean, I suppose I'd be in favor of my own motion.
Yeah, that's
although
very
there have
true.
been times when I haven't.
Oh, like somebody proposes something better and you're like, oh.
Yeah, I'm like, oh,
withdraw
all right, that was a good idea. Yeah.
Well, how's your day been, Caroline?
It's been good. I went to work. It's kind of slow. I got my favorite wrap today, but I substituted the grilled... This is not interesting at all.
Go ahead.
I substituted the grilled chicken for a shawarma chicken, which was much better and comes highly recommended from me.
The shawarma is fantastic.
So, if you are one of my friends and you know where I work and you would like a recommendation for lunch, I can gladly give those to you because I know all of the alterations that taste very good.
The shawarma chicken pita is my recommendation.
It is so good.
If you don't know where Caroline works, sorry.
I'm not telling
shawarma
you.
chicken is good in general, though, so that's a pretty good recommendation for wherever you go.
Yep.
I had a day at work as well.
You had a day at work.
Well, I'm just going to say, I have been working at this new place lately. It's a pet store, and I really like the owners, really like the vibe. It's a good place to work, but today we got a shipment that we had to bring inside. And very small people, Casey, brought in a lot of dog food and a lot of cat food in very, very heavy bags, and I'm going to be sore tomorrow.
We also got a shipment of a lot of stuff, just like things that we generally use besides fresh produce, like canned stuff and whatnot, which all has to go in the basement. And
Your basement is...
I am usually the de facto basement organizer.
Caroline is the basement girl.
But recently we've hired some new people, so they've been, my boss has been testing them out in the basement to see how good or bad their basement organizing skills are. So I didn't have to deal with that today. Although sometimes I like doing it because I just get time by myself and I can listen to music.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, can't complain.
So today on the podcast, since it's just Caroline and I, you've seen us been asking for crisis arcs. Thank you to everyone who submitted.
Seriously, thank you.
Yeah.
They were fun to read.
Some of these are wild that are coming up. We're going to get to those in a second. Today's episode is all about best crisis arcs. And I know a lot of people have a lot of fun crisis arcs they did. It was kind of hard for me to pick. I know it was hard for you to pick, Caroline. But we can save those. You can tell them at a later date. They're still great anecdotes. So we've each picked one of our crisis arcs to share that we really liked. And then we have 4 stories from our DMs to tell you. Now, parsing through all of those DMs was very hard. So we picked the 4 the best to share with you today.
I liked reading them, and if I, 1, was into plagiarism, and 2, was still doing MUN, I would use some of those ideas because they were very good.
I'm not saying that you should go away from this and say, I'm going to do the exact same thing.
No.
But certainly...
Some of the execution, I was like,
there are some nuggets of wisdom in these arcs to come that I learned from, and I love listening to other people's arcs because it gives me some ideas of, tricks to do in committee and, just, little base ideas to start off with. With that... Caroline, would you like to talk about your best arc?
Okay, it's not my best arc. I didn't even award with it. But it's one of the arcs that I had the most fun doing, and also one of the strangest ones I think I've thrown together. So, at Kayak 2018.
It was this year.
It was this year.
Past year, so.
I was Bernie Sanders in the Trump's Constitutional Convention Committee. So basically what we had to do was... Trump had been impeached, I believe, and we had to form a new constitution. I don't know why him being impeached meant that we had to make a new constitution, but it did. So I was Senator Sanders, and a few interesting things about him. 1, he and his wife either met or served together on this thing called a kibbutz. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but it's basically like a collective farming community in Israel, which is a really cool idea.
Says the girl taking Russian.
It's a kolhosi.
You love
Although
that word.
those didn't work very well for them, but that's for later. My idea was to bring the kibbutz to America, but help college students pay for college with it. Now, Kyla started, I think it was actually at this conference, that she started doing these things called crisis words, which were really fun. And I don't know how it came about. I think she messaged our smaller group chat, like of our, close friends we've had since like freshman year, saying, hey, do any of you want a word to like incorporate into your crisis arc? And
I've been so bad. I'm so bad at it. I'm never successful.
And of course we all said yes. And so I said, yeah, and my word was burrata, like the mozzarella with like the softer mozzarella inside. I don't know. You might not know what burrata is. I didn't know until about 2 years ago.
And it's just such a random word, man.
I know. And so I said, well, I mean, I can probably incorporate this if I have farms. So I established the kibbutz, or like several of them rather, and recruited some college students, and it was going really, really well. And our room had a Twitter. And one of the first tweets that they put out about me was that Bernie Sanders had established collective farming communities for college students. They had this whole picture. They actually found a picture of Bernie Sanders' face on a farm and put it on there. Apparently it caught traction because the Twitter was public. And so I think by the end of the committee, and we didn't find this out until the very, very end of conference, that the specific tweet about Bernie Sanders starting collective farming communities got about 15 retweets and like 75 likes. Because people actually...
Some angry replies, too.
Yes. Like, angry replies. People being like, this is an absolutely awful idea. Like, why is he so dumb? And then some people being like, I love this idea. This is so great. Good for college students. And it was fake. Like, it didn't even happen. So, I guess a word of warning if you're hosting a conference, please make your Twitter private because people will think it's real. Long story short, what I did with that is I made enemies with whoever was Jeb Bush in that committee because he had done some things to try to sabotage me, so I targeted that delegate.
Bernie Sanders versus Jeb Bush.
And
Smackdown of the century.
Through my connections, Bernie Sanders, another interesting tidbit, also did a spoken word album.
Wait.
And I can't remember...
Hold on,
I can't remember the name of it. Casey's looking it up right now.
I am.
But it's kind of funny. So I thought I was going to use that. And so I contacted some of my producer friends through that and had them make a spoken word album. And I was looking into some kind of way to make the farm more productive so I could finance my campaign. But that didn't work out the way I thought it would. Because I got a note back from Crisis.
Oh.
Basically, what's it called?
It's called We Shall Overcome.
Yep, that's it.
It was released in 1987.
Yeah.
He's an 80s singer.
This was a little whoops that Crisis did, was they sent my Crisis Note response to the wrong person.
That's a big whoops.
Yeah, and this was a particularly bad whoops. And I will read this to you, and you will understand why this is a particularly bad oops. I have the actual Crisis Note. Senator Sanders, I am excited to tell you that we have been working hard. It is very difficult to tell, but there are some songs, when played in reverse, that sound slightly satanic. I have a feeling that this is mere coincidence, but I will continue to search.
So you were making the album, and they were
I was making the album, they were like, Satanism. So what I ended up...
escape it.
In the end, what I ended up doing was sending some of my farmer people... This was not a collective arc, it was just kind of fun to, like, mess around with. Mm-hmm. But I sent some of my student farmers outside of Jeb Bush's headquarters and made them dress in cloaks, like black wizard cloaks, and...
Oh my god. I'm just imagining this in real life.
And shove burrata in their face while the satanic music that I had accidentally created was pumped over speakers for like hours and hours on end.
Imagine Crisis reading this note.
They read it, and then they also had a video put together that they showed us later where they actually had people dressed in black cloaks like rocking and swaying to like creepy music. They didn't have burrata, but they had that. Now, I didn't award off of it. However, it was very fun to try and incorporate burrata.
I think just the fact that everyone in the committee is like a current American politician makes it even funnier to listen to something like that. And the fact that that tweet took off.
That was really funny.
That's hilarious.
Another funny thing from that is I was looking through notes while Casey and I were sitting here trying to jog our memories about ARCs. And I found a note from Crisis that literally just said, Feinstein, LOL. I don't know what that was in response to, but...
I, while sitting here, changed my idea of what arc I want to talk about.
Oh.
Because I was going to talk about, like, the first arc I gavelled with, but honestly, like, I enjoyed the arc, but it wasn't as spicy as this other arc I'm going to talk about. So, the arc I'm going to talk about is, and I know you hear us drop Kayak and Punk constantly, but that's basically because we were only attending 2 conferences before this year, and honestly, we have a blast at those conferences, and we get to be super creative at them. So my best arc, I would say, the one I had so much, I feel like I just had all these creative ideas coming at me, and usually I feel a little stuck on crisis arcs, and I'm more of an in-room person, but it was Penn State last year, so my sophomore year.
Punk.
Yeah, Punk 2018. And it was a committee about the Irish Republican Army, and I had put down, basically when we choose positions, we get to choose, like, I think when we were doing it back then, it was our top 3 positions. And so I put down every position. We had gotten 3 positions in the room. I put every position as an IRA one, because I'm like, I'm gonna be in that committee. That sounds so much fun. So I ended up getting, actually my least favorite out of the 3, I ended up getting Roy Johnston, who was a journalist associated with the IRA. Now, mind you, most of the positions, almost all the positions in that room were military, and like military focused or leadership focused. So I was coming into the room thinking, crap, like I have nothing. Like
I write about people.
I write about people, but you know, this whole committee is going to be about like being the IRA and, you know, doing what the IRA does. So a journalist is not really going to be helpful in that. And so this was set in 1968, I believe, and I think it was right before the Troubles.
Who knows?
So it was right before the IRA kind of had their big issue and splintered, and they were starting to see cracks between, like, are we going to be a communist organization or are we not? Or are we going to be more violent or are we going to be more peaceful? It was like that kind of debate internally.
I just love debating whether our MUN team is going to be a communist organization or not.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's every e-board meeting, man.
We show up and basically none of the major military positions show up. Except the head of the IRA is there. But plot twist, we kind of get him good in Crisis. So what happens is, through my personal Crisis arc, I was also head of education, which was an interesting position to have. So I started this program where I was teaching young children Northern Ireland Gaelic to kind of revive the Irish spirit within them and yada, yada, yada.
The Irish spirit.
Yes. And so through that, I eventually started a group that I originally wanted to name the Roy Scouts, because my name was Roy Johnson and it was like Boy Scouts, but they were like, Crisis literally wrote back like, that's a terrible idea. You need to find a different name for that. And I was like, true.
Let's link it directly back to me.
It rhymes so well. So I eventually named them the Shamrock Boys. So the Shamrock Boys hiked in Northern Ireland in the hills and eventually found these like abandoned mansions that I had them refurbish. And I eventually started recruiting more and more. So eventually I think I had around 80 orphan / elementary age children building mansions and operating technology out of them.
Can you imagine some elementary school kids building mansions?
And under the command of my friend from college, which is like the best shortcut to use to try to get a good ally, is like my best buddy from college who knows technology is going to teach all these children in the woods.
Make someone up.
So they were super experienced in like radio technology and like building farms. I had like 3 mansions with like all these kids running them in the woods. And then on the other side, one of the delegates from our team, Adam, was in the room. And I've actually been with Adam in committee twice now. And we always end up concocting some really crazy joint crisis notes
Y'all
together.
do some weird
We do
stuff.
some weird stuff in there. And so we ended up thinking, hey, how are we going to kind of take down the power of the head of the IRA? Because I hate when you're in committee and there's
what
like
was
the
Adam's
head of...
position?
Adam was... he was like the head military trainer. So I'm like, between us, we got that. So I set up a training camp because I was education. So I was like, okay, I'm going to educate the soldiers. And I had gotten some like portfolio powers when I walked in saying I was really good at technology. So I said, okay, I'm going to educate them in this technology. And it's going to be the personal troops of the head of the IRA. And Adam is going to wire up all the classroom so that it's not me instructing, it's someone else. So then the bomb goes off, the classroom crumbles. We covered our tracks really well, we thought, until 2 hours later, Crisis comes in. They're like, hey, we found this note between Roy and, whatever Adam's position name was, and it's their handwriting, and it says, like, it has this whole plan to kill the troops for the head of the IRA. So you were like,
Oh.
and oop.
No, we're ending
I'm
that.
sorry, but that is the best. That was my reaction to committee.
That is the second and last time we do that.
So basically, we're like at the end of Friday here when this happens. So we end up going back to the hotel. And the next day we come in and we think, okay, maybe this is settled down. Maybe nobody's going to care about this. With plot twist, people still care about it. So we spend the first 2 hours of committee like filibustering to try to stall a trial because they want to take this to trial. And so Adam and I, through crisis, I burned my own house down to try to erase all the evidence of my handwriting ever because they were getting a handwriting guy to check on it. And somehow, through this, we got the head of the IRA to admit to a random other crime he did, got him removed from being able to vote in committee. Like, we put him on trial before we put us on trial. And that stuff came out after our stuff came out.
Oh my god.
So we got him removed from voting. He went on the run through the forest. Like,
as you do.
From Saturday morning on, the head of the IRA was on the run. And he was sitting in committee. Adam and I eventually go on trial. And they find us innocent, like 4 votes to 3 or something crazy like that. Because the head couldn't vote. And the rest of them were kind of allies with us. So even if they did know it was us, they were like, we don't care. We hate this guy.
There's a great picture of you two. Sitting up in the front of the room. Looking like you have no idea. Because you would, as far as I know from talking to both of you, you had no idea how it was going to pan out. So you're just sitting there wide-eyed like a deer in headlights waiting for this decision.
That was about it. So we get declared innocent. The crisis director was in the room. His eyes are like bulging out of his head, like, what? How did these people get innocent? Because he was giving everyone the exact sign that, like, they're not innocent. You need to convict them, blah, blah, blah. Innocent. So then, that was, like, kind of the end of our joint crisis note thing. But to wrap up my side, I eventually created this dance troupe called the Lucky Charms, who toured around Europe and made dancer-size videos to sell them to, like, increase my personal wealth. So, I've said before, like, I usually don't have one massive thing that happens at the end, and if I do, it's, like, on Sunday as a joke, and it doesn't really contribute to awards
like
at all.
Like burrata?
Yeah, but the thing is, the fact that I used, like, children to set up radio towers, I also had, like, TV shows and radio shows, like, propaganda. I got arrested Thursday once because I like went to give a speech in regular Ireland and I was arrested because I was a terrorist. Ireland. And I was like, oh yeah, that's true. And then I tried to drive the guards crazy by sending biblical messages through pigeons. I had all these random like creative things. I ended up getting a gavel for that one, so that was good. Adam also awarded, he got an honorable. He did. So like we pulled hard in that committee.
You really double teamed that one.
I honestly think it was getting off scot-free at the trial that did that. Because, like, man. Yeah. We totally were guilty.
Yeah. Shall we read?
I think we shall. This first one you're gonna read.
This first one?
Is insane.
I saw this.
I didn't even read all of it. It's so long, but it's good.
Where was I? Hold on.
I was at work. That's why I didn't respond. I think you were here. At home.
Yeah, I was at home, and I was just watching the messages come in. And there are probably 8 of these, and they're thick. So, this is from Andrew, and he's a Penn State Del. And he says, so first of all, big fan of the show. Oh, cute, thanks. But I thought I'd send in my best crisis arc ever. We're just going to read these verbatim. So I'm a Penn State Del, and I was at NICSIC last year, which is the Georgetown Conference, in the Afghan Twilight Committee, which was essentially a crisis committee where the objective was to coordinate a NATO withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Spicy.
Which is one of those things where they're like, hey, solve this massive crisis in a weekend.
Somehow we do.
Yes. I was the U.S. ambassador to Afghanistan, so I was mostly acting as a link between the military and the Afghan officials, but basically within my portfolio powers, it was mentioned that I liked collecting artifacts. So initially, I was trying to get an Indiana Jones-style art going, as you do, which is, yeah, good, where I went around combat zones in Afghanistan collecting artifacts. I had a couple run-of-the-mill assassination and romance arcs, as you do.
Run-of-the-mill stuff.
I love romance arcs. They're so fun.
Didn't you get we did awards for, like, superlatives within our team.
I got the award for biggest seducer, because I would just try to seduce everybody.
That was called the Barry White Award.
Not in real life. In committee through crisis notes.
Yeah, Caroline is trying to seduce every single person she's met ever.
No. Had a couple of run-of-the-mill assassination and romance arcs in the works as well, but before I could really get anything going, everything kind of went to crap because the 3 Pakistani delegates in the committee organized an invasion of Afghanistan. And so that was a whole thing where we had to censure them and recommit troops. I will also make a note in a Pet Peeves episode about censor versus censure, because it really drives me insane. But as a result of this, I get yanked back by the State Department and sent back stateside and out of the war zone. You know, I would hope that they would do that for you. Well, the committee was set a few years back, and so the 2016 election is picking up, and I think, wouldn't it be pretty hilarious if I ran? So I ran. I think that was the thinking of probably half of the candidates in the 2016 election. So I run at the Democratic primaries, beat out Clinton and Sanders, and secure the nomination. I picked Kamala Harris as my running mate, fantastic choice, and started campaigning against Trump, running on my extensive foreign policy expertise. I end up winning and becoming president. Wow. And Crisis came in and announced the election results in an update, and it was a lot of fun.
That's hilarious.
I love updates where you actually get to have fun, but
I love
people
updates
are kind
where
of
it's
like,
about
oh, no.
you.
Yes.
And you're like,
well, good stuff about you.
Yeah, true.
But this is where it actually gets interesting. So
that what you just heard, apparently not interesting at all.
I mean, I thought it was interesting, but okay, Andrew. So I'm not sure why, but the Crisis Director decided to pull Fun Month out a little early, and maybe about halfway through Saturday.
Oh, jeez. Everyone's trying to finish their arcs, and Crisis like
so early.
I don't think
Crisis
so.
is like, no, I'm tired. That social last night, I'm just real tired. I had to clean up until like 5 a.m. And so maybe halfway through Saturday, delegates start finding these artifacts that are clearly important, but we're not sure why. They start sending in cryptic messages about some ancient ritual and stuff like that. Eventually, we have 4 artifacts that are represented by silverware in the committee. Oh, so I'm assuming they came in and, like, gave them out.
Silverware. I was
like
given
spoons.
glow sticks in my ad hoc ones, so.
Crisis comes in, gets the 4 delegates who have the artifacts, and takes them out of the room. Turns out these artifacts summoned the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse when brought together. So it turned into sort of a JCC with the 4 horsemen on one side and the rest of the committee on the other.
Wait, Andrew, question. Maybe I misread this. Are the 4 horsemen now delegates who are the 4 horsemen, or are they completely new?
No, I think it's for the 4 people who had the artifacts were the 4 horsemen.
Okay, Andrew, DM us if you're hearing this, like, clarify this, but I'm very interested. It's hilarious if they're actual delegates who are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
We're like, what are we gonna do now? So it turned into sort of JCC with the 4 horsemen on one side and the rest of the committee on the other. As the leader of the free world, as it does, it was on me to rally the world to defend against the apocalypse. Shenanigans ensue. At one point, the Crisis Director described one of the 4 horsemen as a giant crocodile. So how do you kill a crocodile? Get Steve Irwin, crocodile hunter. Only problem is Steve Irwin is dead. So we ended up sacrificing a delegate and
I have not read this before, by the way.
This is what I'm saying when I was just sitting on the couch reading this as I come in, and I'm like, I just keep getting hit with this. And I'm like, what is going on?
This is hilarious.
So we ended up sacrificing a delegate and trading his soul for that of Steve Irwin. I feel so bad for the delegate who had to be sacrificed. We take reincarnated Steve Irwin, who I hope is now the delegate that was sacrificed.
Feeling bad is something Carol inserted. Andrew did not care about the delegate.
No. Well, at least if he did care about the delegate, he didn't say. We take reincarnated Steve Irwin and throw him at the giant crocodile monster that was destroying what's left of Central Asia.
I wish we had Steve Irwin reincarnated.
Me too. And this is where this is wild to read. And there's more, but wait.
3 more paragraphs, don't worry.
Using his epic crocodile hunting powers, he fights the monster / delegate. Wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Steve Irwin is doing this.
So,
I'm assuming.
Do they have one of the delegates acting as a crocodile?
I really hope there was a fight between someone dressed as a reincarnated Steve Irwin and, like, a delegate dressed like a crocodile.
And defeats him and takes him back to the underworld, where crocodiles live.
So Steve Irwin defeats the crocodile and takes him back. Okay.
So now we still have 3 other monsters / supernatural things that are supposed to destroy the world. But I have a plan. I host the world's largest Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament in Washington, D.C.
This is out of nowhere, man.
And find the 3 best Yu-Gi-Oh! Players in the world. I tell them they are humanity's only hope, and that they have to duel the 3 remaining horsemen for the fate of the world. Of course they do, as you would. And I think one of them actually won, and so we got rid of the horsemen that way. So I think the remaining 2 horsemen came to DC and killed everyone, and the world ended, but this was Sunday morning and pretty hastily done. So yeah, that's how I went from U.S. Ambassador mediating the withdrawal of NATO forces to President of the U.S. defending the world against the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse with Yu-Gi-Oh! Duels and reincarnated Steve Irwin.
And I think, Caroline, your reply out that really sums up what we just heard.
I said, fever dream or crisis arc, the world may never know.
Wow. That is a crisis dream. Fever dream.
Oh my god, that was wild. I just, rereading... I haven't read it since I opened it.
Yeah.
And it's only, 6 days later? But that was... I forgot how wild that arc was. I forgot about Yu-Gi-Oh! Entirely.
Yeah. So thank you to Andrew for sending in quite a comprehensive
huge shout out.
Crisis arc. Now, when we ask for stuff, we don't need it to be as comprehensive as that.
I mean, you can make it.
You can, though. It's fantastic when you do. But, like, don't feel daunted. So I'm going to read the next one. This is Kelly from Elon. And she says to buckle in. So this was from Vix this past semester.
This is me snapping in my seatbelt.
Yeah, so this would be Vix 2019, I assume.
Okay.
She was in an ad hoc about time travel. I'm just going to read this in the first person, like she wrote it. My role in the committee was basically nothing relevant to the crises, an expert on North and South America. Okay, so she's in a committee about time travel. Sorry, an ad hoc about time travel. Oh. And she's just an expert on North and South America.
Okay.
Oof. So I knew I had to do something weird. I decided to travel back in time and to harvest the power of an ancient Brazilian religion called Umbanda and gain control of a demon to kill people for me. I took my demon and went around killing leaders of insurgent groups and members of the United Nations. Haha. That's so...
The haha really just makes it.
I feel like this arc is truly what it's like to be a Model UN delegate, a time travel committee, and then just, like, killing people and being like, whatever. Because, I don't know, I feel like when people see or hear you do Model UN, like, I was trying to explain it to my coworker today,
oh, God.
And they always think it's just purely about Model United Nations.
No, it couldn't be further
And I'm like,
that.
oh, you don't even know, man. Like,
oh, sweetie, you got a big storm coming.
So, thank you to Kelly. That sounds interesting to say the least.
Yeah, I almost want to know how that went down.
Yeah.
Because killing UN officials is kind of a big thing.
Maybe a little bit of a thing.
Okay, so now I'm reading Griffin's arc.
Shout out to Griffin, always being a homie with DMing us when we ask for DMs. Griffin is also from Elon.
Oh. He says, here's one of my favorites. John will remember. John, like our previous guest who was in the podcast. Who was our first guest. Who was in committee with Griffin. So, John, if you're listening, which I really hope you are, Griffin says hi, I suppose. So, in the Jewish Revolt Against Rome committee at MUN this year, which is 2019, my character was Matthias, a dude who was a priest and administered a great temple, could lock people out, and knew its late on stuff. I quickly took the position of being radically anti-Roman and committee, and
that
made
is such a bold move to take quickly.
Already, right out the gate, and made it my goal to establish a Jewish theocracy independent of Rome. For my crisis arc, I essentially tried to do the plot of the Quentin Tarantino movie Inglourious Basterds, which is a great movie.
I am a huge Tarantino fan,
you love Tarantino.
So shout out to that.
I started by establishing a plantation where I grew olives to make an income and bought a blacksmith shop to manufacture armor and weapons and stuff.
Wait, I've got to say, high key, Griffin, this is a question for you to respond to in our DMs. But I was looking through the background guide with Devin, a teammate who ended up being in that committee with John from our team. And he showed me that someone's portfolio powers was that they had a lot of Olive Gardens. And we were laughing because I had just done an arc at Penn State that completely revolved around the franchise Olive Garden. So was that you who had the Olive Gardens? Because it sounds like it. And that would be hilarious if it is, because we were laughing about that.
We could probably go look back at it. I then started an orphanage. This is in parentheses, not the scene of burn the orphanage plan that John told you.
Yeah, so if you reference the episode that John talked about, there was an incident with an orphanage that you can go listen to.
Yeah. I then started an orphanage and used the orphans as my spies, giving them food and an education in exchange for forcing them to play in the streets near my committee members' homes and enrolling them in their universities and such. Okay, we love education. Then I recruited a group of 100 radicalized Jewish soldiers and trained them on S&D tactics. What is S&D?
I just looked it up. Search and destroy.
Ah, got it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. While simultaneously demonizing the Romans in my orphan schools, after I determined they were ready, I instructed my bastards, which is spelled... I'm saying it weirdly because it's spelled the way that he spelled it in Inglourious
it's
Basterds.
Purposely spelled wrong with an E instead of an A. So B-A-S-T-E-R-D-S.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
To wage a ruthless guerrilla attack against Rome, using divide and conquer strategies to annihilate small battalions. I also explicitly would tell them to scalp the killed Romans, when other parentheses appeared on the newsfeed, and carve SPQR into the heads of survivors. Doing this...
That's lovely.
Yeah. Doing this, I managed to kill at least 300 to 400 Romans throughout the committee without a single casualty. I'm assuming he means casualty on his side.
Because there were probably other casualties. And also, all of this, the scalping, if you've not seen Inglourious Basterds, the movie, that's a very heavy reference to there was a group of Jewish soldiers from America who were in Nazi Germany who went around to capture Nazis and scalp them. Like, that is a group, a part of the movie.
The penultimate moment of this was during the big invasion of Judea by Rome, when my legions single-handedly liberated a city in the north by bombing the encampment at night and stabbing those who fled.
Wow.
Distributing the seized weapons to the civilians, and then liberating the city. Whew. I was outed as supporting them in committee, and at one point I kind of tried to deny it, but also like, hey, a dead Roman is a dead Roman. That was in parentheses. Which kind of blew up the lie. That Yep.
Imagine saying I didn't do it, but, hey, whatever.
A dead Roman is a dead Roman. That was the main reason they tried to put me on trial and give me to the Romans in exchange.
Yeah.
Oh, and give me to the Romans in the hostage crisis as an exchange. Okay. So I'm assuming they had, like, a hostage crisis.
That's interesting, though, because I know I don't know the specifics of the dynamics in committee, but I know the purpose of committee was, hopefully, I think, an independent Judea or an independent Israeli state.
I think so.
Because they were revolting against Rome, so every action against Rome would have helped the committee unless that was changing. So that's interesting.
In hindsight, it didn't really have a strong end goal, parentheses, main goal was just kill as many Romans as possible, end parentheses, which is probably why it flopped in terms of awards. But it was one of the most fun times I've had in committee and with Crisis. I also had fun sprinkling in quotes from the movie. This is a quote. "We're here for one thing and one thing only, killing Romans." Which, again, if you haven't seen Inglourious Basterds, in the movie it's killing Nazis. But they pronounce it like not Z's.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So he did he tried to do the Romans,
I also memorized... Oh my god.
Oh.
I also memorized Brad Pitt's monologue to the Bastards at the beginning of the movie and stored it as a page-long mandate for my men in crisis notes by replacing Germans and Nazis with Romans/Romans.
Wow.
The CD and crisis staff also hadn't seen the movie, so they were probably very confused on my persistence on the scalping of the Romans. I strongly emphasized the importance of scalping in my notes.
And he also included one of the Twitter updates, which... I am shocked. They did.
It's gross.
Include a photo of a scalp.
I don't.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So that's an insane arc. As a very big Tarantino fan, I appreciate that. But it's very sad that your crisis room did not understand what you were up to.
I mean, I hadn't seen that movie until freshman year, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew it existed, I just hadn't seen it.
We're gonna do one more real quick, because this one's a short one, to wrap it up. But this one's from Daniel. I'm not sure what school Daniel goes to, but shout out to Daniel for sending in this message, and I hope you're listening. So he said, "My favorite crisis arc was a planned V for Vendetta event with another delegate from my school. We were in Easter Rising crisis, and as members of the IRA..."
Hey.
Wow, shout out to IRA committees in Model UN.
I thought you were about to say shout out to the IRA.
I'm not going to say shout out to the IRA.
Shout out a terrorist organization on the podcast.
Would not say shout out to the IRA. But certainly shout out to IRA being used in so many committees. But it was a very fun crisis committee I was in. We were planning on blowing up the British Parliament.
As they do in the movie, yeah.
I orchestrated the capture of the ship, the Lusitania.
Okay.
And my partner used students to create bombs, which would be transported on my boat. I had a spy in Parliament at the time, and we had all the bombs set in place. And then, we never got a response. It was just so close to being perfect, and then it just... ... fell apart. One day I'll get that perfect arc. Shrugging emoji.
Look, man, the one and only time I've ever finished an arc, ever, I really gotta emphasize that, was at Punk. My last year of MUN. My second to last conference, I finally finished the arc the way I wanted it to be finished. So, I mean, it takes time.
Yeah.
It's not to say you can't have fun.
So, by the way, wrapping this up, I think we forgot to say it at the beginning. This is our 10th episode.
Ooh, yay.
And because it's a multiple of 5, apparently that's a big deal. So, 10 episodes we have done. We're over 2 months now of published episodes.
Yeah.
So we just want to thank everybody who's been listening. Whether you've been listening from the beginning or this is your first episode you've listened to, we just want to thank you for tuning in and listening to us chatter about Model UN for like 25 to 45 minutes. Who knows how long.
It depends. Sometimes 50. Maybe
I
we
know.
blabber a lot.
We just kind of record for however long. And then
We're gonna make some celebratory shrimp burrito bowls, I think. Mm-hmm. I've got shrimp thawing.
And also, a little update on the website. That should be coming out in a couple weeks. Soon.
We are working on content.
We have the site that we're building on. Then we're going to buy the domain name, so it's just a .com. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to release it. We are very eager to share it. We just want to make sure that we have a little bit of content on there already so that when it goes out, you guys have stuff to look through and read and, you know, it's going to get the ball rolling. So look out for that in a couple of weeks. And, you know,
that's all from us.
That's all from us. So with that...
Is there a motion to close debate?
Yes, there is. Motion to close debate.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Debate's closed.
Hey.
Point of inquiry. What are your social medias?
You can follow us on Twitter at MUN01 Podcast, and you can also email us at mun01.business@gmail.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of the MUN01 Podcast. We hope to have you back soon.